How's it going there, fellow captains? This is Bix, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about one of my new modules on one of my Dreadnought thingies. So, if we go and take a look at the Monarch, the big fella of Dreadnought, we can have a look at one of the old modules that I've been using recently on the old Monarch build. Now, the Monarch has a number of different modules you can have in the primary slot, and the one I've been using most recently is the Bombers Tier 5 module. Now you can see there it does 3000 damage per mine, blast radius is 400 meters, and they launch a total of 4 bombers for 4 attack runs each. It's a targeted type ability or module, and the cooldown is a massive 45 seconds. So let's get into the game and have a look at the old module loadout, or the, well, what am I talking about? The way the module actually works. Here's my other modules for those interested. We have the old Vulture missiles, the armor booster pulse, and the ever-tested and very useful warp jump. Here are my officer briefings. Very interesting stuff, I'm sure you will agree. And I've no idea what possessed Connor to start talking like Bix all of a sudden, but he's doing it anyway, so let's find ourselves a game and check out the old bombers, eh? Well, we got a little death match going on the Emerani Night map. You know, something I'm asked often, and quite a lot in fact, is, Bix, where from do you come? And I'm not really sure about that question, because obviously I sound like a Cockney geezer. But for some reason, people get me confused with the old Kiwis and the Aussies. Totally can't understand that confusion at all. But we're gonna be going back to myself, because that voice is a little bit too much. And obviously it's pretty damn bad as well, but here we are. So yes, it's obviously Connor here, because that voice totally, it was somebody else entirely. Somebody completely different. Old Bix. Yeah, crotchety bastard. But yeah, so the point of this video, really, is I wanted to play some Dreadnought. And a subscriber pretty much recommended the Bombers. I can't remember on whether or not it was because they were good. I mean, why else would you recommend something unless you've had fun with them? I'm a few matches in with the Bombers, and honestly, it's making the Interceptors... I'm very much missing the Interceptors. Just replying to target there. I really miss the Interceptors. Now, a lot of people don't like the Interceptors. I don't mind them. The only issue with, of course, any of the 3 carrier builds, whether it be fighters. I mean, the fighters are a little bit more flexible, because they are more of a deployable pod or defensive weapon that you can deploy and they'll just randomly attack a target within 2,000 meters of yourself. At least I think it's 2,000 meters. It could be a little less or a little more than that. But the Bombers were they're very similar to the Interceptors. The Interceptors head to a target, deploy their payload, do a big chunk of damage, which is very, very dangerous to softer targets, like if they're able to reach a Corvette, a tactical cruiser, or even an artillery cruiser. If they do land their payload, it will deal a significant amount of damage. But the Bombers, of which there are 4 deployed, take way too freaking long to get to their target, and by the time they even get close to their target, the target could be dead. That's A. Or B, just have moved away to a more distant area of the map, which means it's going to take the Bombers even longer to get there. And whenever they do get there, there's a high possibility that the captain of the ship that they're attacking will have just easily taken them out. I mean, one thing I've noticed is that if there's a player attacking me with flax or something, and I deploy the Bombers, they're caught in the crossfire, which is obviously going to happen. The flak is a AoE weapon. It, of course, damages you if it's a direct hit, but anything close to you as well within the blast radius or damage radius will, of course, take damage too. And I am playing terribly here, mainly because I'm trying to watch my Bombers and really just pay attention to how long it's taking them to get to where they're going, and if they're able to deal any sort of damage. And my experience so far is not at all. It's like what 1 out of 10 times, and in fact, let's say it like this: 1 out of 15 times they'll actually reach their target and deploy their payload. It seems like one of the bombers is a lot faster than the other 3. They're supposed to move in a formation, or even just group together, but there always seems to be one bomber that's way ahead of the others, and seems to be going at a faster pace than the others, which is very, very odd actually. It's very confusing too how that works. Surely they're all programmed to go at the same speed and stuff. I don't know. I'm not a game designer. The guys over at Jaeger have a really difficult time. And there's a few there's a few YouTubers I watch that play random games now and again. And there's a couple of other games they played that I noticed were made by Jaeger, and they look like very, very good games. I think that Spec Ops The Line was developed by Jaeger, and that's supposed to be, you know, a generic third-person cover shooter. But Spec Ops The Line is a game I haven't played, but it's one I would really like to play. It seems to have a lot of interesting things to say about war and the things that happened during war that people try and justify because it was war. But there go the bombers. Look at them. They're so fucking slow. 2 deploy from either side. I mean, there's 4 hangars on one side. It would be nice if you could kind of configure your bomber loadout to maybe deploy from one side. So while you're fighting an enemy on the right, you know, going full broadside, you could deploy them from the left so they're not as easily visible or easily destroyed. But at the moment, my bombers are there. You can see them. Got the little purple pips around them. But really, it takes them way too fucking long to get somewhere. I mean, there's the payload there. You can see them. It kind of works. You know what it actually works like? They're basically exactly the same as the Paragon's bombers from Fractured Space. Only the Paragon's bombers move a lot faster. Probably because in Fractured Space they have a larger distance to cover. Because the little sectors in Fractured Space, depending on the game mode, are a lot larger than what's available in Dreadnought. I mean, one sector is probably larger than the entirety of a map in Dreadnought. Who's that? Is that a bot? No, that's Mirarchez. But we're gonna send our bombers after the artillery cruiser there to see if it does anything of worth. I'm hoping it does, but he's got some sort of, yeah, he's got his point defense enabled, so I'm not sure if that actually works against players, or not players, sorry, aircraft. We can also deploy them against this Dreadnought, because we can have 2 squadrons up at one time. But whether or not they get there again is a completely, it's anyone's guess. Anyone's guess. There he is. I wonder if we watch long enough for the bomber. I mean, look, you can see them there. One was just taken out. They're not really that small a target. And because they move so slowly, even a player that really isn't paying attention will notice them and take them out. And if all 4 of them aren't deploying their payload and dealing damage, then they're pretty much worthless. Not that they ever reach their target or deal damage anyway, but it just baffles me how they even get through the design phase or testing. If I'm not even sure if modules are tested in this game extensively or at all. I just don't know, because there's a lot of modules I played with that just don't seem to work or just don't seem to do what they're supposed to, and it leads me to the conclusion that it's probably quantity over quality. The more modules they can put into the game, the more you can say that are available, and the more playstyles you can boast about or advertise. But that's you know, recently in Dreadnought, I've been boasting a lot about how good Fractured Space was and how I liked the way they worked their modules and stuff. In that you would get like a module that, let's say, deployed a mine, but when you go to the edit the loadout or just customize that loadout or the mine, it would give you 3 different possibilities for what that mine could do. One would allow it to do a massive amount of damage with a big blast radius. Another would possibly reduce the damage output but increase the blast radius again. And another one would reduce the blast radius but allow it to do damage over time as well as its initial big bump of damage. And it looks like we did some damage there with the bomber, although it didn't seem to be a lot. I wonder, no, there's still bombs deployed, yeah. That's an allied Dreadnought in front of us, isn't it? I can't really tell what's going on there. Well, there he is, okay. Deploy our vultures here and assist with some ballistic cannon fire. There we go. Power off the weapons and go for Josh. Armor booster pulse enabled. Deploy our bombers, although they'll probably not get there. It's not really fair to say it's just the bombers that never reach their target. Just like the vultures I launched a moment ago, it's fair to say that they don't always reach their target because they have a longer range missile, but to balance that, it does take them longer to get to their target. Unlike flechettes or the light missiles that pretty much deploy instantaneously and are at their target in a matter of seconds. Because they're, of course, close quarters, which means they'll have to reach their target faster, but they don't do a massive amount of damage. I remember deploying bombers against Mirarches. I just can't pronounce that name. I'm not even sure how it's supposed to be said. I'm very curious, actually, to hear how it's supposed to be pronounced. Oh, we've got an enemy bot. That'll be an interesting target. Oh, it's cloaked. I wonder where it is. Probably better camouflage when it didn't enable the warp. Or the cloak, sorry. Okay, there's target. Let's deploy our bombers. And our vultures. Okay, keeping up the fire. Oh, we've got some pods. Oh, where are the bombers? Oh, they've deployed their payload. Sweet. Okay. I'm not sure if any of them actually detonated. But look, if Melville here flies through them, hopefully they'll detonate like mines. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sweet, look at that. Oh, that's useful. So it's a very good... what's the word? You know, when you want to keep something away. It's very good at making Corvette captains think about where they're actually going to go and how they're going to approach their target. But there's the game over. So, in a map like this, which is a lot more enclosed, there's a lot tighter canyons or lanes to fight through, they can be useful because they pretty much lock down a corridor. But not all the maps are like that. It would be cooler if you could kind of pick where they deploy their mines, because they are mines, really. They're not bombs. They deploy their mines. And fourth was a lot better than I was expecting, honestly. But let's go back to the home screen again and just take a look at them. While I'm doing that, don't forget to check out my Patreon. 7 patrons. It's going great, guys. Goal is 10. Right, so no, that's not what I want to do. I want to go to ships, and then I want to go to Jupiter Arms, and then I want to go to Monarch. Ooh, I've got 60,000. I could afford to buy something. I wonder what that will be. Wink, wink, hint, hint. But here we are, bombers. So they can be useful, but it's very, very specific scenarios in which they can be useful. Like if you deploy them against an enemy Dreadnought that is in a canyon or something, or down a lane or an alley, you know, something that's very enclosed. There's just one way in, one way out. They can be useful if the enemy Dreadnought dies before the bombers reach it to deploy the payload, or if the enemy Dreadnought warps out just as they're deploying their payload. That leaves the mines active to, I don't know, damage something that will later use that route, which is not the way they're supposed to be used, honestly. But again, I just don't think they've been tested enough, or they haven't really been designed with how this game plays in mind, how the game works. It's a lot faster paced, and deploying mines on a target that can just easily move away just as the bombers approach, it's pretty much exactly the same as the problem the Paragon has in Fractured Space, in that anybody worth their salt, anybody with a brain, will move once they notice bombers are on their way. And they're not hard to see if you know what you're looking out for. But anyway, I'll leave it like this. They can be useful, but as they are, I just would never ever buy them. Just never. I see them as just a waste of a module slot. I would very, very, very much like to go with the interceptors over them if I had the choice, which I do, which is awesome. That's the way the game works. So I would more go with the interceptors because I know they're going to get to their target faster, and I know they're actually going to deploy a payload that locks onto the enemy and does damage. It's a targeted type module, whereas they're just, it says targeted there, but they deploy the mines, and that's it. Either the target's still there or it's not. If the target's not there, then they'll keep
flying around the fucking map trying to get to their target. They're a bit of a mess when it comes to what they are. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Do not forget to check out my Patreon. Seamless self-promotion is at an all-time high. And I have 7 at the moment. Their names are on screen right now. Thank you very much to each and every one of you. And also, don't forget to join the Discord. Links to both, are in the description below. Enjoy whatever it is you're playing. Don't forget to recommend other modules that maybe I haven't tried before, or I'm really that familiar with. And of course, like always, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.